Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to the Bundesliga Show. We are here again for some predictions ahead of the next match week of the Bundesliga. Very much looking forward to getting stuck into it. Apologies if I sound very croaky and ill, because I am still not shifted or got a new illness, probably from my little man. But I just want to be able to get on and talk some Bundesliga with my good friend Mark. How are you doing, good sir?
Yeah, not bad at all. Yeah, I think we all just need a bit of spring, to be honest, as well, don't we? Like, it feels like it's been a long way. I don't know what it's been like over there in your area, Rory, but this winter has been like a real brutal one over here in Nuremberg. And I think it's been a little bit nicer the last few days, and we're all kind of hoping that, we might get an early onset of spring this year by like the middle of March, because we all need a bit of sun in our lives and a bit of heat, I think, more than anything.
Yeah, agreed. Luckily, this part of England has not really suffered too much. We just had the barest amount of snow, and it's just wet and miserable. But my spirits are lifted by the fact that we have Bundesliga football in little over 24 hours' time. So looking forward to it and getting stuck into it. Once more, before we do, obviously a little reminder and pointer to tomorrow morning. Runa and I will be back with fantasy football. Tomorrow morning, 8:30 a.m. UK time. So we'll be back for that. So make sure you check that out. We'll put it on socials as well. Please do make sure that you leave a like on this video. Obviously, comment along whether you're watching live or not for your thoughts and feelings for the next match week ahead. And of course, subscribe to the channel. Make sure you go find us on social media. As I said, that's where we post all our shows, all our content is on there. So follow at the Bundesliga Show on all good socials. Right, straight into it then. Another 9 games to review and look ahead to, starting with Friday night football, which looks like quite a tasty game to get us kicked off with, Mark, as Dortmund take on a resurgent Mainz 05. A game of great importance to both sides. Mainz will want to keep on climbing the league after some huge wins in the last few. Obviously against Augsburg just lately. Leipzig and Wolfsburg really feeling themselves now under Urs Fischer and really starting to push possibly away from relegation trouble, although they will know that a couple of bad results and they'll be straight back into it. Dortmund, on the other hand, they're still in the mixer from a title race point of view, I guess, just by the barest of margins, and will look strongly at this home fixture, as they always do from a home point of view. What have you got for Friday night feelings?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. I think it's one of the best looking games of the weekend, to be honest with you. I think, as you say, it's 2 formed teams at the moment, 2 teams that are both looking good and well on course for achieving the goals that they would have set at the beginning of 2026. Obviously, Dortmund to get Vizemeister, they'll also be aiming for second, probably still not first until that gap come down a little bit, but obviously they've been very consistent in 2026. Still not winning games like easily, but they're still winning pretty much every game, which is great to see. And it's a kind of side to Dortmund that we've all been asking for the last few years, really, in many ways. So yeah, happy for them. And obviously Mainz managing to come out of the bottom 3 for the first time, consistently in quite a while. Obviously, they've been in that bottom 3 for most of the season, pretty much the entire thing. And now starting to get away, obviously 2 points clear of that bottom 3 as things stand. I'm actually going to go for a mini shock in this one. I think the fact that Nico Schlotterbeck is missing, he's suspended for Dortmund. And I feel as though, obviously, Hollerbach and Zentner are probably the main misses for Mainz, but they've been missing for quite a while now. So I think they'll definitely be ready to come in. I think the likes of Silas and Becker are ready to give Mainz a point in this game. Some might be a bit surprised by that, but I just really like what Mainz have been doing since Urs Fischer came in. And we saw them get a 2-2 draw at Bayern earlier in the season. I've also gone for a 2-2 draw here to kick off the weekend in what should be a good style, really.
Yeah, I can, very much appreciate your points there. I think around the big miss of Schlotterbeck is a point to be considered. As you said, the likes of Silas, Becker, nice to see him back in obviously Bundesliga football. Tietz and Amiri. So Mainz have definitely got some key elements there that you'd imagine they'd get joy from. The one thing I guess I have is that really strong Dortmund home form. If they do win on Friday night, they'll be top of the table from a home point of view.
Wow.
1 point ahead of Bayern. So they're so strong at Signal Iduna Park. That's why I think it will be close. I think they will, in true Dortmund style at the moment, just get over the line. So I'll say 2-1 to the home side. Moving on then to Leverkusen versus St. Pauli for our How via kickoffs on Saturday afternoon. Leverkusen, again, now starting to feel a bit better about themselves. They've hit their straps. Apart from that 1-1 draw with Gladbach, which obviously wasn't the best for them, they take on the St. Pauli side, Mark, who they only recently just beaten in the cup, 3-0. So they'll have good recent memories of that. That was also at home. So again, they'll be feeling strong. Their form is good. Also, on the other side of things, I'm sure which you and Pete talked about a lot, would have been the Pauli result from the weekend just gone, which is obviously the kind of shock win against VfB, which was they were completely justified and deserved winners of. Before that, their form was not electric, so hence why a lot of people were not calling that. Coming into this one, I can't see another shock result. I don't think. It might be close initially, but I think Leverkusen, much like they did in the cup match, will stretch out to a lead eventually. If Paddy Schick is fit and ready to go, which I think predictions are they should be available, the quality that they have in their team, they'll test St. Pauli too much. So I will go for a 2-0 home win. And kind of bursting the bubble a little bit for St. Pauli, but wouldn't be surprised if they kept it close for the majority of the game at least. But I expect Leverkusen to stretch out as the game goes on. Mark, how do you have this one lining up?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we've got a kind of good marker on how this game could go, as you say, with the Pokal quarterfinal just 1.5 weeks ago, really, which obviously ended up in 3-0. Obviously, since then, I mean, Pauli had really their result of the season, really, didn't they, with that 2-1 over Stuttgart? Just kind of completely left field result. As you say, they fully deserved it. But whether they can go and back that up against another top 4 chasing team, I'm not sure. I think Leverkusen they've had a funny season in some ways because they've had some really good results, but also some poor results, but they're still in a decent position. Like with the game in hand against Hamburg, if they win that, they would be a top 4 side as things stand. So things are certainly not bad, obviously, the way they kind of kick the season off. So I think Hjulmand deserves some credit, really. He has picked up 11 wins in his time at the club out of 18 league games, which I think is perfectly good. It's Champions League form, or at least roundabout Champions League form anyway. And I do see them picking up another win here. I think the likes of Kofane, the informed Tillman, Maza, they're going to have too much for Pauli. And I know it feels as though we tip against Pauli every week on this show, but I'm going to sync up with you, Rory, and go for a 2-0 Leverkusen win here.
Yeah, lovely stuff. Moving on to our next game, which is Frankfurt and taking on Gladbach. If we're talking about the Dortmund Mainz game being a matchup of two teams in good nick. This is not a matchup of two teams that are in any kind of nick. Sadly, the form book looks pretty horrible. Obviously, for Frankfurt, we know how they're feeling right now in terms of the losses, the goals conceded, obviously getting the draw at the weekend. Gladbach similarly have kind of drifted under the radar a little bit, I think, and it won't be long, I guess, Mark, before Polanski is maybe feeling that pressure again, that he initially started with, I guess, until things turned around. They've not won in their last 5 since that big opening, win to 2026 against Augsburg. Tricky to call because they're both in such terrible fettle. The only thing that is pushing me, Mark, is the recent record between these sides, looking at it, and Gladbach haven't beaten Frankfurt since 2021, as far as I can see and tell. Also, we had a mental game between the two, the start of this season in the Hinrunde, that 6-4 game where Frankfurt ran out to 6-0 or 6-1, saying daft by that. And Gladbach worked their way to make it slightly more respectable. So I'll just back just because of that recency bias and that record. Frankfurt at home. I don't think it'll be pretty, but I'll say 2-1.
Yeah, I think there's a few things that are also pushing me to side with Frankfurt here. I think first of all was the first performance under Albert Riera. I felt was a lot better. They could have kept an extremely rare clean sheet, especially on the road. They went down to a penalty, which was another familiar Frankfurt error, with obviously Højlund getting the second yellow and giving away a penalty. That was frustrating because it looked as though they were actually going to get an away win and a clean sheet at Union, which would have been a great start for Riera. As it happened, a point, and they could have lost it at the end too. Obviously, Union had a great chance at the back end, which would have handed him a defeat. So I think he'll still be quite happy with the first performance. As for Gladbach, I just feel as though they're just looking really toothless at the minute. And this is a match between Frankfurt that are 7 without a win in the league and Gladbach who are 5, as you say, Rory. And ironically, both of the last wins came against Augsburg as well. And Frankfurt's last win was the 13th of December, which is, it's going to be more than 2 months ago by the time they kick off on Saturday afternoon. So it's not good numbers, but I do think they will finally get over the line. I think Albert Riera will get his first win in charge. And as you say, I mean, Polanski, I think he's a bit more than just feeling the heat. I think he's on the chopping board potentially at the minute. I've heard a few noises coming out of the club. The fans are not particularly happy either with the style of football. It's just been an absolute nothing season from them, and they are still in a relegation battle as well. Let's not forget that. So I'm going to go for 3-1 to Frankfurt. I think they'll finally put on a bit of flair in this game and win it quite comfortably.
Yeah, fair enough indeed. Moving on to maybe a slightly more simple one for us to predict, but predict we shall do anyhow. It is Werder Bremen taking on FC Bayern on Saturday afternoon as well. Mark, yeah, naturally the form book, the way the teams are lining up right now doesn't look so great for the men in green. I know you and Peter have done some deep dives, some digging into Bremen in the last few weeks as well, and the last couple of shows that unfortunately I couldn't make. Yeah, how do you see this one going?
I mean, it's just an absolute disaster, really, for Bremen. Obviously, we said the last game was 2 teams on long winless runs, but Bremen are on an 11 match on a winless run, going all the way back to November. I think around about 3 months was the last time they won. So, I mean, it's just been a dark season for them, really, in many ways. Obviously, Horst Steffen sacked. Not really the most favourable decision. Obviously, Tioan came in, lost his first game last week in another relatively toothless display against Freiburg. Obviously, against a side that played long periods with 10 men last week. Still couldn't score a goal. They're going with Kiki Toppin and Jim are up top, which just isn't very inspiring, is it? Obviously, I still feel as though Romano, Schmid, and Jens Stage are probably the best goal threats at the minute, really, for Bremen. But this is not the fixture you want to come into on the back of a 11-match winless run. I mean, the only saving grace for the home side, I think, is the fact that obviously Bayern had a pretty tricky cup tie just last night on the Wednesday evening against Leipzig, which they had to play pretty well in that second half to come through.
Yeah.
So last time this happened was after the Champions League game against PSV, and then they didn't play very well at Hamburg in the top spiel, and they were quite lucky to even get a point, I felt, from that game. And so I think Bremen will take hope from that against their arch rivals, how well Hamburg played in similar circumstances.
Yes.
But Hamburg have got a much better feel around the club. That's the difference. Bremen don't. And I think that their fan base is the most unhappy I've ever seen it since we've been covering this show. And that includes the relegation year. I think that was the first year we covered this show together, Rory. They obviously got relegated under Kohlfeldt. And to be honest, I'm getting very similar vibes from that season to this. And obviously they went on, I think it was a 14-match winless run that season. And they're getting very close to this, at this point too. And I'm going to go for them to extend that run as well. I'm going to go for a 3-0 Bayern win, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I can't argue against anything you have said. Obviously, the slight downside for Bayern is that Elise won't play because of suspension. Obviously, aside from that, you can chuck in someone like Jamal Musiala, who's not a bad replacement. Yes, and Werder haven't scored in their last 3 attempts against Bayern. It's been 3, 4, and 5-0. So I will say 3-0 to Bayern as well. Yeah, completely agree. Moving on then to what could be a closer match. Also on Saturday afternoon is TSG Hoffenheim taking on SC Freiburg. Two teams who will be feeling pretty good about themselves, both obviously in the standings, fairly close together in 3rd and 7th place respectively. Freiburg a little bit more cut adrift of that kind of European chasing group, but a statement win at the weekend could well draw them back in. In terms of whether we see that happening or not, I'm less confident. I think, Hoffenheim, if they're able to reset and throw away that Bayern result, which a lot of teams have to, and a lot of teams basically just do because that's what Bayern do to teams. Even a team that's having a really good season like Hoffenheim. Aside from that, they're in fine fettle. They'll be happy. Obviously, the other big caveat, which is very clear, is the fact that Freiburg were in the Pokal. They're in action. They went all the way with Hertha to penalties and just squeaked through. On penalties in the end. So they've got more football in their legs. They've also been playing, 2 games a week pretty much all season because of being in Europa. So they have a lot of football under their belt already. Hoffenheim this season at home are really, really solid as well. So I can't see anything other than a home win. So I will say 3-1 to Hoffenheim.
Yeah, I think it's good that you mentioned that one, Rory, but I actually felt as though Hoffenheim did well in that game. That was the weird thing. I think in the first half, if you look at their XG, they ended up creating around about like 2.2, 2.3 XG in a game at the Allianz, where they played pretty much, 75 minutes with 10 men. Yeah. And I think obviously they got level through Aslani. So I actually think similar to the reverse fixture in that one, a few decisions went against them. I mean, let's not forget they've conceded 4 penalties in 2 games against Bayern. And I think a few of them were a bit dubious in my eyes anyway. But I think they definitely can sweep it under the carpet. I think from an attacking perspective, it was fine. I think they created chances. They scored a good goal through Aslani. And I think, the second half, okay, they fell apart. But let's be honest, when you've been playing that long against 10 men, you can ship goals the back end against Bayern, can't you? So I don't think they have to really worry about much. And I agree with you. I think obviously Freiburg came through an absolute test against Hertha. But it was a massive win for them because now they're in the semis of the Pokal, and who knows, with a home tie they could be going back to the Olympiastadion come the end of May. So it's their season's still going really well, by the way, Freiburg, even though a lot of people have said that the football's not been as good as in recent years, and they've certainly not been as exciting as it from an attacking perspective. But the season's still going well. They're in the last 16 of the Europa. They're in the last 4 of the Pokal, and they're in 7th in the league. So it's actually a really good season in many ways. But I agree that I think Hoffenheim will bounce back. I think they'll show the mettle in this game, and this is a big game for Hoffenheim, by the way, because I think if they win this, they really show that they are ready for Champions League. You know what I mean? I think it's a difficult fixture against a very resolute Freiburg side who never concede many goals, really. But I still see them getting, I don't think it'll be quite 3-1, but I go for a 2-1 here for the TSG Hoffenheim.
Yeah, no, again, I think you made some good points, and maybe it's something we need to do in future shows, is give Freiburg that bit of extra attention because, quite often, because they're not always involved in games that are really high scoring, we don't necessarily always have those games at the front of our minds, but they're always there making those wins. We always say that they're the steady eddies, aren't they, of the Bundesliga? You can always rely on them, and as you say, the way that they're going in the cup competitions is excellent. But I think we're still just about backing the home side there. Moving on to our next game, which is the final afternoon game on Saturday, which is HSV taking on Union Berlin. Obviously, Hamburg, doing what they needed to against Heidenheim to win that, that big relegation battle game, and really help make themselves feel even more comfortable. That's 4 unbeaten now. Their performances have very much lifted. As you mentioned a little bit earlier, the 2-2 draw with Bayern, they were very unlucky not to win that game. They haven't lost since early January when they lost to Freiburg. So they're going good guns against an Union side that have now started to stutter a little bit. And, amazingly enough, from a table point of view, you kind of think, well, Union have had, significantly better season. But if Hamburg win, they actually go level on points with Union Berlin and have a game in hand. So if we're talking about, seasons and how they're going, Hamburg could really start to shift the dial about how the season is going. Ultimately, all they care about is Bundesliga safety and securing that. But they'll also be very much looking over their shoulders. They're in 11th spot, but they are also only 3 points away from Bremen in 16th place because it is so tight and so tantalizing. It really is that close. From a prediction point of view, I'll let you take this one first, Mark, because I think it's really hard to call.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting looking fixture. I think it'll be a great atmosphere as well over there between these two sides. It really will. I think should be a good game, this one. I think, as you say, Hamburg, I'm really starting to be quite impressed with them. I think we're really starting to see regular consistency in terms of performance, which is very normal that it takes time to get used to the Bundesliga. I think they signed really well in January too. And I think there's a lot of positive to look at them. They've got that really important 3 points last week against Heidenheim, which these are the kind of games that it's all very well drawing against Bayern, but you need to win against Heidenheim. And that's exactly what they did. And they did it comfortably as well. And I'm actually going to back them here. I think they look good to beat Union. I think they're really starting to turn, the Volkspark Stadion into a bit of a fortress. And the performance against Bayern, I can't speak about how good that was and impressive. They took the game to Bayern and were more than worthy of a point. Some would say 3 with that clearance off the line late on from Alphonso Davies as well. I think the team's looking good. I think there's a lot of standout performers. I think Vieira deserves a lot of credit. He's really started to show why his, market worth is so high now. Vuskovic is a guy, obviously, Peter and I have mentioned a lot, and he's been one of the players of the entire season, let alone for Hamburg. He's just been outstanding. He's going to be a star probably for Tottenham, and oh boy, Tottenham need him as well, by the way. But yeah, I think that they are going to get the win. I think they're going to be good enough. I don't think it's going to be easy because Union have weirdly been better away from home this season. I feel as though the better performances have come away, and I can never remember saying that for Union before. But for me, it's not going to be easy, but they'll get a 2-1 home win, the highest foul here.
Yeah, you're right to mention Hamburg's home form and making it a fortress. The last time they lost in the league at home was when they lost 1-0 to Wolfsburg, which was that absolute steal of a match, if you remember, when they really shouldn't have lost, and they missed a penalty as well. That was back in late October. So they lost to Koeln in the cup at home, but aside from that's a long stretch. So I'd line up with you there. I think they'll get over the line, but I'd go 1-0. Can't imagine it being a goal fest, perhaps, in Hamburg. Lovely stuff. Over to the top spiel on Saturday evening. We have Stuttgart taking on Koeln. Should be, I think from a footballing point of view, this should be a nice game to watch on Saturday evening for all you Bundesliga followers, as well as ourselves. I think, Stuttgart will be really upset with themselves the way that they performed and did not show up against St. Pauli last weekend. That's coming off the back of, strong performances. If not, maybe stuttering a little bit. Obviously, they did the job against Kiel in the cup, but then obviously looked a bit tired against Pauli. Only just got past Freiburg. Got past Gladbach a little bit easier as well. But I think, Stuttgart and Hoeneß and co will want to stand out and maybe put forward a statement performance on Saturday evening, which I'd very much hope and like to happen. Koeln, on the other hand, running Leipzig close is a good performance. They've, won and lost. They'll be feeling pretty, again, safe in regards to the way that they're performing. But again, from a safety point of view, relegation-wise, they're not safe in any stretch of the imagination. We know that the relegation battle is tight, and it's really condensed, basically, the bottom half of the table, if you can even exclude Union Berlin in ninth. So they'll be desperate for points as well. Stuttgart won the reverse fixture of this, obviously earlier on the season. Was it 2-1, I think? In a game where Koeln came out of the blocks really fast and were really dominant, actually. And I think Stuttgart actually dodged a bullet in that game. So have absolute, real worries about if Koeln can do the same, and if they're at that high intensity which they can play, then I think Stuttgart will be really tested. But I'm hopeful for a home win, which again, the VfB have got a really strong record, haven't lost at home since that Bayern demolition job. So I will reservedly say that Stuttgart will go over the line. I will say I think we'll concede, so I'll say 2-1. 2-1 home win. Fingers crossed for the boys.
Yeah, this is similar to the Hoffenheim result. Obviously, you've got to try and bounce back. That's the key to getting top four. You can't be going like 2, 3, 4 games without a win. That's the issue. I think you could afford to lose the odd game. You can, but to get top four, but you can't be going like 2, 3, especially against teams you're expected to beat. That's a bigger problem as well. So I agree with you. I think the top spiel comes at a good time for Stuttgart. We all know that like the Cannstatter Kurve and the like, it'll be an absolutely electric atmosphere under the lights. I'm sure there'll be a lot of pyro and the like, so that get from both sides of the stadium. So I think the atmosphere will be great. And normally the VfB tend to do well under those big atmospheres. Historically we've seen it in the Pokal, obviously the big matches in the Vizemeister year, and obviously to a slightly lesser extent in Europe, but they've still won some big games in Europe at home as well. So I think the team is still looking relatively good. I think you're running the risk a little bit of burning out certain players. There's certain players that are getting a lot of football at the minute, the likes of Jamie Leveling, Undav seems to be playing a lot of minutes at the minute too. I think you need to get Demirovic back in and firing a little bit more. I know we got the winner against Freiburg a couple of weeks ago, but he doesn't really seem to be getting that much key game time at the minute. I think, obviously Hendricks and Szabo, we've talked before that they've made a really good partnership, I feel, at the back. So for me, I think they will get the win and relatively comfortably against a Koeln side who, as you say, they still have a few worries about relegation, even though they played well for most of the season. But I'm going to go for a 2-0 Stuttgart win here for me.
Lovely stuff. On to Sunday afternoon games, and we have two of them. First of all, we have FCR Augsburg taking on Heidenheim. For your Bavarian brothers, Mark, it is a big game. Then we're starting to enter, or have we already passed the last chance saloon for Heidenheim? I guess there's an element of the fact that realistically Heidenheim only have to win with a moment. I think we're back. Sorry about that. So big game down at the VVK, back at the VVK Arena, which again, their home form, Mark, is really good, Augsburg. So again, that lines up. Heidenheim's away form is terrible. It's the worst in the league. Only 4 points on the road all season. So I think that's quite FCR will get a 2-0 home win, I think, and get over the line. What do you reckon?
Yeah, it is a big game for the FCR, and it's one of these games that is kind of like a derby, but not really a rivalry. Like I actually didn't realize how close geographically these two teams are. Like I guess there's only like 20 miles or so separating these two teams geographically. They're very nearby, but obviously the teams don't really have that much history playing each other because they've been in opposite different divisions until these last 3 seasons. Obviously, this is likely to be the last meeting for a while because, as you say, Heidenheim, I don't think they've quite picked past last chance saloon because it's so condensed, that bottom half. If they can win here, then they're back within just about onto the coattails of that bottom 3. Well, the sides outside the bottom 3. But I think if they lose here, you are getting to that point because the issue with Heidenheim is that they have had quite a few presentable fixtures since the turn of the year. They played the likes of Pauli, Wolfsburg, Hamburg, and obviously now Augsburg. These are the kind of games you've got to win because, let's be honest, they're not going to beat teams like Bayern or Dortmund, realistically. So, Augsburg have looked better. I think last week they were obviously turned over relatively comfortably by Mainz, but it was 2 penalties. Probably just about correct decisions, but you could argue they're a little bit soft as well, really, as a lot of penalties are these days, let's be honest. But they were probably deservedly beaten in Mainz. But before that, they'd had that famous win at Bayern, and that's got to be like the performance where they kind of make a benchmark. Unfortunately, they haven't really reached, that's the only time they've reached those levels really this season. Maybe against Leverkusen as well when they won that game. This is a game they have to win, but Augsburg, I don't know. Last week, they kind of disappointed me a little bit, if I'm being honest. Heidenheim, I think Frankie Schmidt came out last week and he said, look, guys, I'm doing everything I can, but we've just not got enough at the minute, and he's looking like a dejected man. I think he knows that his team he's finally going to get his first relegation in, around about 20 years in charge of the club. Sadly, it is going to happen, I think, come May, probably a little bit earlier, truth be told. So all that said and done, I think Augsburg will just get over the line. They are generally a strong home side. This season, not as strong at home, but since Manuel Baum came in, I think they have been better. think the likes of Giannoulis is going to be key in this game to give them width. I think Masengo could be an engine in midfield. I think I'll be looking at those two to get maybe even Mert Kermer to finally show why Besiktas bid that 12 million euros and they turned it down. So I'm going to go for a 2-1 FCR win here.
Yeah, very good. And finishing us off for match week 22 will be RB Leipzig and VfL Wolfsburg. Both sides come into this not overly hot. Leipzig obviously ran Bayern pretty close midweek in the Pokal. Thought they might were going 1-0 up through that Baumgartner goal, but that got scratched, and then Bayern just about stretched out in the second half, but were run close. Before that, Leipzig obviously had beaten Koeln narrowly, but then lost to Leipzig and drawn with Pauli. So their form in the league is a bit scratchy and patchy, which they'll be disappointed with. But I feel like a game to reset the mark and really obviously help them push forward for top 4 football is a game at home to Wolfsburg, who are in a ruddy mess. A bit of a shambles all over the shop right now. 3 straight losses, no wins since they beat St. Pauli 5 games ago. Don't suspect that it will be a win coming this weekend either. I think this is a pretty comfortable home banker again, hence the title of the show, to be honest. So I would say a 3-0 home win for Leipzig. Pretty comfortable all round with all the attacking talent that they have, and Wolfsburg just being so out of sorts and directionless basically.
Yeah, obviously, if you watched the show on Monday, you would have seen that Peter and I expressed quite a lot of concern about the VfL at the beginning of at the end of the show. Really, it was. I think we covered them last in our relegation kind of analysis. Really. We don't have any faith in Daniel Bauer, who obviously got a couple of good results in the interim, got the job round about the Christmas time, and just hasn't, as you say, he's only won 1 game since being appointed on a permanent basis. And they were lucky to win that at home against Pauli as well, to be honest. It was a very late goal that got them over the line there. So I have very little faith in Wolfsburg. I think maybe the only hope for them was the good performance of Belocian last week. I think he was a good pickup from Leverkusen at left back. He played at left back last week, and I think he could be the kind of signing that maybe just about keeps them up. Obviously, we kind of played with the idea that Wolfsburg are going to get relegated this season, but I think both of us kind of came to the conclusion that normally these company clubs, they find a way. Like we've seen it with Hoffenheim a few times, with Wolfsburg as well. Maybe not so much in recent years, but I think 10 years ago they played the playoff as well, Wolfsburg. So it's not like they've never been in a dogfight before. They've not really had a good season for a good while, probably since the Glasner days, really. I would say it was the last time they had a real good season. The first season we covered, Rory, and I guess there's a lot of like dark shadows around that club. Like obviously they've got good players. That's the crazy thing. I mean, what happened to the likes of Jesper Lindström? Do you remember how good he was for Frankfurt? Yeah. We barely heard from him, have we? And there's just been so many underperformers. Like Amura for me is the one that's probably kept his performance relatively high, even though he is a bit of a cocky character at times, and he does draw criticism from pundits and fans at times for his behaviour and things like that. But I still feel as though his performances have been relatively good. He's still been getting on the scoreline sheet quite often. But aside from that, I mean, there are problems at that club. I think Kilian Fischer might miss this game. He obviously came off last week. There's a laundry list of problems there. And as you say, Leipzig, I'm glad it was good to see Baumgartner get back in form last week. Obviously, he started the season like a train. He'd had a bit of a kind of quieter period, but did really well last week to get on the score sheet. For me, they will win this game. So I'm going to go for a 3-1. I just don't see beyond Leipzig, who, as you say, they've been hot and cold this season, but ultimately have so many good players. Nusa, Diamonde, Romelu. There's still a very strong squad. Maybe not the strongest Leipzig squad we've seen since we've been covering this show, Rory, but I still feel as though they're going to have more than enough to beat this struggling Wolfsburg team.
Yes, they should do. And yeah, your point about them being patchy is a concern, but again, they are a team that has had a hard reset in the summer just gone. So I think we knew we were gonna see that from them at times this season. I think I really would have worried for them if they were in Europe this season with a hard reset. I think their form would have been all over the place from a league point of view. For doing that in 2 games a week. But right now you have to back them against the Wolfsburg side, who are, yes, not in fine fettle at all. And that brings us to a close for this evening's show. So yeah, thank you all for watching. It's been good fun to get back talking Bundesliga football and look forward to it. So Mark, you can do the honours and close us up for the evening.
Yeah, so if you've enjoyed what you saw tonight, then don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and all of that kind of thing. And don't forget as well, we're also on social media too, X, Instagram, Threads. We put all our live matches and things like that on there. And don't forget as well to join Rory and Runa tomorrow morning for the fantasy show at 9:30 European time, 8:30 UK time. So yeah, check into that as well. So thanks a lot, guys. And I guess we'll see you all on the other side on Monday evening for the review. So see you then, guys. Ciao, ciao.
Cheers all.